That being said, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today's session is going to be a little different than usual. And we've been going over the seerah of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu for the past couple months. But now it's going to be a little directed more towards the youth and something that seems kind of out of left field, but it's still regardless important to talk to. And it feels kind of fun, at the same time kind of embarrassing. It's not an easy conversation to have, to make it clear, and to have the right answers to. The intention for today is to have a marriage talk panel. And inshallah, we have Sheikh Qasim, who has been married for many years, alhamdulillah, and has 3 sons. And we have brother Haris, who has 2 young daughters and is a MOU coordinator, who is also the organization that we've been doing the Seerah session, the 10 Promised Jannah as well. So maybe on the lookout for that, inshallah. With that being said, the panel is going to be a little different. It's not just going to be straight fiqh discussion and pure Q&A, but rather it's going to be something that with intriguing questions that will answer some of the questions that the youth usually have that come around nowadays, especially with the current age and the current confusion. But before we go into that, we're going to start off with some very quick fire questions that, inshallah, to get the brain started and thinking. So we'll start off with each one. I'll ask the same question, but let's start off with Sheikh Qasim. In one sentence, marriage in Islam is what?
In one sentence,
In one sentence.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a tough one to put everything together in one sentence, but I believe it's a companionship that a couple works together to build a family, the one that can help each other out to enter into Jannah.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I think that was a very good answer. Just to add on to that, I think marriage is, as Allah even described it, it's a rahmah, right? It should be between spouses, right? And that's a mercy between the spouses and the love that Allah puts in the hearts of for the man for the woman and the woman for the man, right? So it's something that's actually ordained by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So that's just to add on to what was mentioned.
Now, second question, again, a quick fire one. What's one stereotype about Muslim marriage that you believed when you were young before you're married, but you don't believe it in it anymore? A stereotype.
You want to take this first? Because you just got married, so you may remember.
So one stereotype, I mean, this kind of goes back to, it depends, right? Because in the American cultural context, things are a little bit different than perhaps even my parents' generation or even the generation before, right? So in terms of how do I get to know, and I think we'll probably get into that later into the discussion, right?
Yes.
Are you even allowed to speak to or get to know, or because the way it would work in previous generations, especially where my family's from, like Pakistan, for example, sometimes you don't even get the opportunity to speak to the other before even getting married, or very minimally, right? So that's one thing. Navigating marriage, especially in this country, is something you have to work through because it's a different context from that perspective, right?
Yeah, Barakallah Feek. I agree with what Brother Harris said. And this is pretty much, I guess, not in the United States. We find this all around the Muslim world, that we see that people think of it as if marriage means that you're meeting somebody at the time you're just getting married. That's the only time you have met. Rather, you're allowed to talk to your going to be a spouse, of course, in circumstances the Sharia has defined. I'm not talking about going outside the boundaries of Islam and dating and that kind of stuff. Rather, with the person you are interested in, you can go and interact with in the presence of the guardian and ask the suitable questions which are for that you think is important for you to know before you get into marriage. And I think that's pretty much I agree with. I had a similar kind of.
Sure. Then we'll jump straight right into the next one.
Okay.
And this is a hot take before now we start going into more of a rigid prepared questions. But what do we overcomplicate? What do we do that, and what do we sometimes also oversimplify about marriage?
Barakallah, because it's a very good question, especially for the youth who are here, for them as well. I believe it's because of the current societies and the way of life that we are living through. It has become as if to get married, actually getting married has become so complicated in an Islamic way that the system pushes the people to the extent of commit the haram rather than fulfill your needs and desires that the Sharia has allowed us. Like for example, when it comes to the man who's supposed to be, from the Islamic perspective, the one who is the provider of the family, they have made it so complicated that he has to establish to an extent that most of the time they pass their prime age of getting married. Many of the guys, they get married at the age of in the late 20s, 30s, and some of them I know in 40s even, because they are still in the process of getting established, and getting their degrees whatsoever. And now the problem has happened is not only from the guy's side, the very same ideas have been adopted by the women as well. And now the women are also delaying their marriages to the point that many of them don't even get married. They get to a point. And we see unfortunate kind of normalization of that delaying the marriage. And it's harming both the men and the women, boys and the girls. So that's the complicated part, I believe.
Yeah.
But when it comes to simplification, Islam actually made it very simple to get married. And if we just return back to Allah, the way Islam has defined the marriage and how you get married, when it comes to just the contract part, it is simply one sentence, which is ijab wa qabul happen, that one person offers the marriage, of course in the presence of the wali of the bride, and the bridegroom is there, and the witnesses are there, and the mahar has been mentioned, and that's about it. And that can happen like literally in less than a minute. That thing happens, right? So it's so simple. And now culturally, many of these things have become very complicated. Besides the established part, then it's expected from the groom, and depends on the culture. It could be the bride also. Groom side, he has to throw a party in which tens of thousands of dollars are spent, which probably many of the grooms at the age that they're trying to get married, they can't afford. And unfortunately, if they are not groomed properly to be a groom, they end up taking the haram loans even for marriage. And now they're starting such a noble relationship built on something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala detests to the point that if you're starting something on the riba, on interest-bearing loans and these kind of things, imagine that where this marriage is heading. So that's the guy side. If you go to some other cultures, it's very complicated for the girls to get married also, because now the girl side, the father of the bride, he is supposed to pay some sort of amount of money to the groom. And of course, it has nothing to do with Islam, but unfortunately, there are people who have this kind of complicated ideas, and that makes it more complicated.
Yeah, so just to add on to that, where do we overcomplicate? We overcomplicate on the day of, and many times, unfortunately, this is probably one of the harder conversations that I'm talking from a guy's side, we'll go through. In fact, for that matter, even from the girl's side, right? How do you maintain the Islamic etiquette when it comes to the way what you have at the wedding hall, right? When it comes to, for example, cultures that are engaging in mixed dancing, for example, where you have women on stage, for example, dancing with the men, and so on and so forth. And I'm not talking just amongst families, right? We have others around that are not mahram and not from that family. So and I think from a young age, especially, I think this is more true from the women's side, that you imagine that your day is going to be such a special day, and so you need to put that money in order to put on a great show that would perhaps impress yourself or impress others around you, right? And once you build that dream up that you have to have such an extravagant wedding, then you're going to fall into that situation where you're even putting the man in difficulty, because he's going to feel like he has to reciprocate and put on that type of show too when it comes to the walima, for example, right? So I mean, don't get it mistaken, because the walima is, we understand, a part of Islam, and it was in the example of Abdurrahman bin Auf, radiallahu anhu, right, where he passed by Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he mentioned that I'm getting married, right? He actually smelled the scent on him, right? That he had from the fragrance that he had on him, right? And he asked about it, and he mentioned that he's getting married, and he was one of the first companions in Medina to actually get married, right? So he's instructed to have a walima, slaughter, I believe it was a sheep, invite people, feed them, right? So that's part of the tradition, right? But where it gets blown out of proportion, as the Shaykh was even mentioning, right? Where you're taking on so much debt from the start, if you have to take out a loan, for example, and even if you're not taking out a loan, right? You can, some of the things that you do that you believe perhaps they're permissible, but it'll put you in a difficult situation, especially starting off where you're going to be in a situation where you have to provide, right? Just a little bit about myself, right? So I had gotten married in 2020, March 21st, 2020. If anybody remembers that time, it was the first day of the lockdown actually in Illinois for COVID, right? So before that, my soon-to-be wife's family at that time had invited, X amount of guests. I had invited X amount of guests, and then as we're approaching the day, we just have to cancel everything. And it ends up being that for the aqd al-nikah, or the marriage contract, my family goes to the soon-to-be bride's house, and then we call the imam there and so on and so forth to officiate the wedding, and then the walima is just at my parents' house, just between our families, right? And that wasn't planned, but that was a very peaceful way to do it, to be honest. But circumstantially, of course, it's not realistic in every scenario. So that's the overcomplication, really.
Jazakallah.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Jazakallah khair. The story about Abdurrahman bin Auf, just to be very, a little bit clarity needed here. Abdurrahman bin Auf actually, he migrated from Mecca to Medina with the rest of the Sahaba, when Rasulullah Sahaba migrated from Mecca to Medina. And a newly established Islamic society, Islamic state was there. And the Sahaba who migrated from Mecca to Medina, they pretty much left everything behind. And Abdurrahman bin Auf did as well. And when Rasulullah was creating the brotherhood between all the families, or the ones who migrated, Abdurrahman bin Auf, he refused to take anything from the Ansari brother. And even though his Ansari brother wanted to give half of his whatever belongings, or even he had two wives, and he said he will divorce one, and after the iddah he can marry that one as well. And he said, no, don't worry about that, just show me where the marketplace is, and he will take care of it, and he will go and do the business. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put a lot of barakah in his wealth. He became one of the richest people in Medina later on. Abdurrahman bin Auf, the story goes like this, that he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam after a few weeks. He was there, and there was some yellow stuff on him, which is normally for the weddings and stuff the girls put on themselves. So Rasulullah investigated, asked him, where did this come from? And he said he got married. Now, he already got married. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked him that, what did you give him for mahar? And he said, he gave a piece of gold that was equal to the size of the pit of the date. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already blessed him in such a small period of time, a few weeks period of time, that he had enough wealth to give as a mahar. And of course the walima part was mentioned. But the thing is, another aspect of which is important thing I mentioned a lot of time. Look, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he was not aware of Abdurrahman bin Auf got married. And Abdurrahman bin Auf is one of the earliest Muslims. When Abu Bakr Siddiq became Muslim, which was right away after some was appointed as a prophet, he went to a few of his friends, including Abdurrahman bin Auf. And he became Muslim in the very beginning of the da'wah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, and he's from those 10 who were given the great time to go to Jannah as well. That Sahabi was close to Rasulullah from the beginning of the da'wah of Rasulullah. His wedding happened and Rasulullah was not there. See, today we think of the weddings are so complicated that about spending the money, spending the wealth in a manner that is a competition rather than a start of this noble relationship. See, I'm continuously referring to this relationship as a noble relationship because this relationship is supposed to be built on taqwa, on the consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not on the fear of what the people would be saying or how the society will be feeling about how much money was spent on the wedding, that kind of stuff. So look at the Sahaba's life and look at what's happening today, and we get the kind of a picture of where we are failing in this circumstance.
Okay, with this being said, and now I'll get everything ready in terms of ideas and whatnot, there's a couple topics we're going to address, and inshallah, within those as a conversation. One, finding your partner, finding your spouse. The nikah and the contract. The roles, finances, and just real life scenarios in general. Culture versus deen when it comes to the topic of marriage in Islam. And then past the marriage, growing together. Thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now within the context of finding a spouse, the first question is, what's an actual realistic way, halal way to meet someone nowadays without being weird or reckless or un-Islamic? How do you go about doing that?
Should I go first? Okay. So I've been married for about 27, 28 years. So he was being nice to say a few years. I've been married for decades now. So before I go into the question of looking for the spouse, I want to address the parents who are here or who will be listening, inshallah. Look, it has a lot to do with the parents to make sure that we are making marriage easy for our children. It should be accessible for them to get married at a younger age, rather than putting different kinds of restrictions that push them in the direction that we don't want, and even our children don't want to be in those situations. Okay? So make sure that we are allowing and making getting married as easy as possible. Okay? The kid hits a puberty. It's the age where their hormones are kicking in and they would like to fulfill their desires. We should have a talk. We should not be having a talk, letting the school having the talk about how the sexual desire is supposed to be fulfilled. Rather, it should be done by the parents and the mother or the father, whichever one is easier to talk with. They are the ones who should be talking to them in a manner that they understand that, first of all, their parents understand what they are going through, the phase that they're going through. It's not something to look down at the situation, but they are going through a change of phases in their life, that they are going from childhood to adulthood they're entering into. So we should make sure that they understand that the parents understand it, and that they are there to help them to get married whenever they feel like they're ready, and they were paving the path for them to get married. So, having said that,
yes.
And you can stop me. As I said, I'm married for a long time, so I will be continuously talking. Huh?
You want to talk?
No, man. You can stop me. Huh? Whenever I'm talking too much. So, the part that you're talking about is in the society that we are living in.
Yeah.
And look, at the end of the day, we are all accountable in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yes.
Okay? What people have done or they do is not the issue. The issue should be always, what should we be doing as a Muslim? Okay, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَوَرَبِّكَ لَنَسَأَلَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ أَمَّا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that by your Rabb, that they will be questioned about what they used to do. Whatever they have done, they will be asked about them. Meaning, about talking about the people. So every action that we are undertaking, we are accountable in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whether it's getting married, looking for your spouse, we have to do our homework of what Islam allows and what Islam does not allow. And stay within the boundaries of those limitations that Islam has set. Now, what can we do here? Of course, if you are interested in somebody, why, let's say, because we still have eyes. It's not that when we are following the Sharia, we don't have eyes to see. If you've seen somebody that you are interested in, and for the purpose of marriage, not hanky-panky and all that. So, when we're talking about that, talk to your own parents. Reach out to them and let them meet the parents of the spouse that you are interested in. And it should be easier. And figure out, if it's a girl that you're looking for, then you should be reaching out to for example, your mother to find out more about the girl. Because they can probably find more about the girl in the settings that a man cannot find out actually. Even the people look at the society we are in, people are dating and living together for not years, decades, literally. And they even have children. They're still not sure if they're going to get married or not. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. What are we trying to show off now? So, if you really want to know a person, you have to know the person through the people who have been living with them or lived with them or close to them. Find information from them about them. Like Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, once he was asking about a person, and he asked him, can somebody vouch for this person? He wanted to find out what kind of person he was. A person says, yeah, he can vouch for this person. He said, okay, you can vouch for him. Okay, did you spend a whole day with him? He said, no. So, okay. He said, did you travel with him? So, because while you travel with somebody, now you really sometimes reveal the things that you don't reveal in your normal lifetime. He said, no, he did not do that either. And he continuously asking and the person was responding, no, no, no. And then he said, oh, okay, so perhaps you saw him doing the salah, doing the ruku and sujood and these things. He said, yes. So Umar said, then get out of here. I don't want to hear your opinion about the person. You cannot vouch for the person like that. So to know the detailed information, you have to reach out to the people who can provide right information. And now the last part I'll give.
Yeah.
When men and women normally, look, when they talk to each other, I'm talking about even in the non-Shari situations, look, they expose the best of themselves to each other. They're not showing what are their weaknesses, okay? So that's not really a real person in front of you who you're talking to. So if you really want to know the real person, then if you follow what the Sharia has paved the path for, I think we can get a better understanding of the person.
Okay.
And then when you talk to them in the circumstances where the guardian is there, then both of you are serious now, because you know what you are looking for. And the question answer is happening is not to just, oh, so I look pretty or nice in front of you. Rather, you'll be serious about, okay, this is where I'm heading to, so I better be truthful and serious about my answers as well. Sorry, too long.
Yeah. So just to add on to that, a lot of this is actually natural. What I mean by that is when you're in an environment where, even if it's like the workplace, for example, or for those that are in university, you're gonna see others that you might have a level of affinity or attraction to, right? But it's about how you go about that. If you think that that's the right move for you, right, in order to pursue and find out. So there's ways. I mean, if you find yourself where you're in a situation that this happens, unfortunately, a lot to those that maybe they graduated, they left college, and now they feel like they're isolated from maybe Muslim community, right? And because of that, they're having a hard time even knowing contacts, right? To pursue and to weigh and so on and so forth, right? So what I'm trying to say is when you put yourself in an environment where you're pursuing that which is pleasing to Allah, whether that's learning the deen or whatever it is, the time that you put in those environments, you're going to run into people that are similar, like-minded to you. Whereas if you stick just to your business matters, sometimes Allah knows best, but it can become difficult from that perspective because you're not breaking that mold and habit, and you're just sticking to, for example, academics, or you're just sticking to your when it comes to work, and then you get caught up in the busyness of it and so on and so forth. And that also goes back to when we're saying you start to get older and older, right? And you just don't know where to go and what to pursue, right? Even in my situation, it was very natural because the family that I had gotten, my wife's family, right? They were a mutual contact of someone I had already known, right? That had connected us and suggested, hey, do you want to talk to such and such family? Here's a little bit of information about them, right? And that's a natural within your sphere, within your circle that you find somebody, and that's really the most natural way to do it. But I understand that might not always work out, and you might have to look further, whether that's out of state and so on and so forth. And some people even utilize other means, and we can get into that, right? But there are ways to know that spouse. He mentioned that if you have a sister, for example, from the brother's perspective, right? I mean, can you find out about such and such person? Can you ask around? Maybe you know their friends. And if somebody is asking you about maybe a friend that you have and they're interested in marriage, right? On behalf of someone else, right? You have to tell the truth about that individual. In that situation, it's actually not backbiting to be honest and say, hey, you know what? This individual has some good traits, but at the same time, I know such and such about them that you need to consider when you're going into this forward, right? That's where the honesty has to come into play, right? I think, I don't know if you have it for us, but you're allowed to discuss in the proper context. And I know that was alluded to, right? If you have a perspective that you're looking into, the best way to do it really is within the family context, if that's possible, right? And even if you have to sit to the side to discuss and ask questions to your prospective spouse, you can do that, but you can't do that in seclusion. And seclusion is when you're out of line of sight from anybody, or nobody can walk in or out. It's a closed.
And actually building on this actually looks at the next question. But in the era of social media and messages and things like that, where people direct message people left and right, DMs, right? Is that even allowed in the first place? Or can I reach out through DMs, through personal messages? And does that have to be in a certain style or manner? As long as I follow, hey, I keep it within halal mannerisms and not intruding past and just keeping it simple to, hey, I'm interested in this, and this. Can I reach out to your parents? Is that allowed to even converse through DMs without the permission of their guardians? Or is that even a good way to go about it nowadays? Because that is a tool.
Jazakallah khair. I mean, it's an important question, and that does require a little bit of a detailed understanding of the subject itself also.
Yeah.
So when we talk about, for example, what's mentioned here is about the DMs or social media and these kind of things. It is, at the end of the day, it's a means of communication. So you are communicating with somebody. Now, what is the understanding in the Sharia regarding the subject? What the Sharia mentions about that is it comes in the same category as if you are talking to somebody privately. So when you're calling the direct message like this is a private conversation that's happening between the man and the woman. Now, of course, the context, the content is also a matter. That what content we are discussing. For example, you are in workplace where you are just discussing work is one kind of a conversation, which Islam allows to have a conversation. I'm not saying that it's in a isolation of closed room, two people, men and women, which are not mahram to each other.
It's over Teams or something like that.
Yeah. Again, but at the same time, we're talking about the work is a different kind of a area where, in many circumstances, it is allowed for two genders who are not mahram to each other to communicate for the work purpose. And it's still, that should not be outside the work and it becomes like a loose talk and things like that. And same thing, when we're talking about, for example, you're buying and selling between the men and women who are not mahram to each other, it is allowed. These are the allowed areas. And even for educational purposes, if somebody is asking questions could be a female teacher or a male teacher to learn things, but that has to be also in a proper gathering where there is no it does not become a private between one male and female, because the hadith also something that talks about that the third one is a shaitan if we are gathering this way. So it should not be closed doors. And you cannot say that, okay, so it's talking about closed doors, so I can just go and one man and woman can go in a forest preserve, there's no doors, that's all. Okay, no, that's not what it means. Talking about isolation, you should not be in isolation with your opposite gender, the way the Sharia says it's not allowed. Now, going back to the DM part and all that, so it comes under the same category as the fuqaha have defined. So it comes in the same category as communication that people do while they are face to face like that, or they are sending information over different means of communication.
So to expand on that as well, that means I can't go and say there's a person of interest, I know them, go find them on Instagram, DM them, and say, I'm interested, and I say, here, are you interested as well? If so, can I talk to your parents? That wouldn't be allowed a conversation.
I mean, if it only goes up to that point,
Yeah.
that's fine, to find out that person is married or not married, that's one
Yeah.
thing. But if it goes more than that, and you start questioning,
Mhm.
and the conversation becomes more different than that,
Yeah.
that can be problematic. That's what I'm saying. You gotta be careful, and you don't get into the gray area where it becomes a slippery slope.
Mhm.
To be very fair,
Yeah.
and
sure.
you don't want to be in that circumstances. That's what I would say.
Any thoughts, Faris?
I think we need to frame this type of discussion and as talking from the man's perspective right now, you really have to be honest with yourself. As a man, you know you have that attraction, and that attraction for the females doesn't go away even after you're married. Of course, it's easier to control, but shaitan doesn't give up. Think about Yusuf alayhi salam. He was known for the handsomeness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him handsome, right? And in that situation where he's where the doors are closed and he's trapped and he's in a situation where he's alone with the woman of the house, the wife of Aziz, right? He fears he's gonna fall into haram until he remembers Allah, right? So if that's the Prophet of Allah, and how do we have confidence within ourselves that if we're, may Allah protect us, in a situation where we're alone with the opposite gender, right? And we think that shaitan is not going to come for us or we're going to be okay. That's the things that we have to remind ourselves before we're in that situation. So what does that mean practically? Practically, if you're in school, so projects and assignments, and that's one thing. Education is one thing, but you go out of your way to sit next to the sister you're attracted to? Why would you do that? You know, if we're being honest with ourselves. Because you know you're going to be tempted to open up discussions about other than the schoolwork and tasks. What's your favorite hobbies? You know, do you like to hang out after school? You know, where do you like to go? Where do you like to frequent? What, and so on and so forth. Whatever it is about these personality things that are not appropriate to ask outside the context of the discussions that are meant for the sake of getting to know the person for marriage, right? So that's the honesty part. I mean, it goes both ways too, right? And I think, and I have a sister too, and I think the sisters have to understand that men are pretty slick when it comes to conversations and getting the woman to open up and discuss with them and being friendly, right? Because friendly, that's a way when sometimes when the girl sees that this guy's nice to me, you know, he's not really interested in me, and they might open up more from that perspective, right? And discussion and whatnot. So, and then a final thing I'll say on this for now is that the same thing extends to online, right? I mean, just adding women, for example, on Instagram and these other platforms. Why do that, right? I'm not talking about your aunt, right? or your sister or somebody. Right? I'm talking about like, why put yourself in that situation where you're seeing photos, for example, that you know are you're gonna look at them for longer than you should. And that social media is a big topic too, but that's a whole nother discussion. But to put yourself in that situation, you have to be honest, right?
Let me just add something to it, and it's important. Actually, there's getting married is one aspect of it. I believe there's many marriages are falling apart because of social media as well, which is people put their lives in the social media, which is snippets of their lives. It's not their life. And who would like to put the worst parts of their life online? They put their best, right? Whenever they are having fun, they're having good time, and they're taking those snapshots and putting it up. Now, others, they look at it, and as people would say, they put the hasad on it, the ayn on it, and the things like that. But the point here is, people think that's the life that others are living. And then they start reflecting that life on their lives. And hence, they start thinking of life different than what life is about. Yeah? And that is causing a lot of fitna, a lot of problems within the marriages, and marriages are falling apart and people are getting married because of this kind of a life that they're seeing in the other gender. And they don't realize that was not like a 24/7 life of that person either. And hence, they set the expectations, which are abnormal expectations, to be achieved. Yeah, and inshallah, there's a subject of its own that
Yes.
should be discussed. I gave a talk about this at DePaul, which was about the fitna of
Social media.
social media, and that talk was actually geared towards just the guys, just to let you know, and that we were not even, I don't think it was even recorded. It was more so they can open up and discuss the things that they really face because of the internet at large, and how to avoid those things. And that's a separate subject that we can talk about some other time.
Okay, now this inshallah, the next question is going to be a quick fire one. Both of you, inshallah, will get a chance to answer this. But if you could only keep 3 qualities in a spouse or a partner, deen/taqwa, emotional maturity, communication, life goals, family compatibility, finances, or attraction, which are the top 3? And quick why.
Right, so those are all important. So top 3, okay, in no particular order. Well, deen comes first and foremost. We know that even from the hadith, right? Why a person even looks for in a spouse, right? So how do you gauge the deen? So let's do the quick
Yes.
fire and we'll get into the details, right? So deen comes first. That's a given. Also, especially from the man's perspective, attraction matters. We know that, right? Attraction matters, and in some cultures, unfortunately, Muslim cultures, you don't even see the to-be spouse's face before you agree to go on with that marriage, right? And that can be a problem because that can be a source of resentment for you over time, right? And then you can you repeat the list one more time? Sorry.
Yeah, deen, which you talk about emotional maturity, communication, having the similar life goals, family compatibility, and finances, and then lastly attraction.
I would say similar life goals
Similar life
for
goals.
the other.
It's a tough question.
I mean, the first one is easy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think everybody knows the answer. The first one should be deen.
Yeah.
That's a different story. Do people put deen as the topmost or not? But the deen must be the top thing. And tell you the truth, the rest of them, whatever you have mentioned, if that is the top one, the rest of them, whichever order you want to put it, it will vary from person to person,
Mhm.
and it will automatically will prioritize according to the specific person's needs,
Mhm.
whether it's a man or a woman. So I think that really does not really matter after that. The
Okay.
first one is done, then the rest will fall in the right place automatically. This is how I look at it.
Jazakallah khair. This is a question specifically for you, Sheikh
Which
Hassan.
school, me?
Yeah, specifically for you. What if you want to get married to someone outside of your culture or ethnicity? What if there's pushback from parents or from people?
Be persistent.
Be persistent. It's a question that is, especially here in America, it's not uncommon. Because
Yeah.
you see different cultures, different people from different areas and countries, and attraction and getting to know the deen is not only specific to one race.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you put the deen on top, then the other things automatically fall the right place, and I think that helps to
Mhm.
even when you're talking about. I think when you're saying culture, you don't mean culture in a sense of falling to different ideologies or something.
No.
Rather, you're still talking about people who are Muslim,
Yes.
but they could be from different ethnicity or different. Probably they
Yeah.
speak different languages or
Exactly.
from a different area or
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it can become complicated for those people who only marry between the cousins, for example. So for them, definitely becomes very complicated. But it's a simple thing once you understand that deen is the highest thing. And obviously, when you are looking for somebody who is you believe that can help you and you can help her to grow in the deen, it becomes easier, and then you are willing to put the effort
Mhm.
to get married to even to a person. There might be many barriers, and then of course you have to tackle each barrier accordingly. Yeah.
Be patient with it.
Be patient is always the case. It's not only for marriage. Yeah. Patience is the key thing. As a matter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he started the da'wah, one of the first revelation that talked to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about the hardship that he was going through, that referred to Rasulullah to have the sabr. Yeah. And sabr is not being what do you call it, passive or something. So sabr is actually a very active kind of an action, which means that the hardships, trials, and tribulations that you are going through, you continue to do the right thing. So it's an active action. Sabr is not a passive thing. Most of the time people think of sabr as something passive, that as if hardship comes to you and you just shut down and do nothing and just wait for that difficulty to get over with. No, that's not the case. You continue to be the one who do the right thing at that time. Yeah.
So inshallah now we'll go into the next section of the conversation, which is the nikah and the contract. Inshallah this shouldn't be too complicated, but this is to clarify certain ideas and misconceptions, because like you said, in social media, people over exaggerate or overcomplicate or kind of misconstrue what actually is the nikah contract, what is meher in the first place, how expensive does it have to be, these kind of things, right? So the first question, in simple terms, what actually makes a nikah/marriage valid, and how does each element protect both people in the relationship, inshallah, the spouses?
So I'll open up and then I'll hand it off. So just to make the marriage valid, you need obviously the offer and acceptance. So what that means is that the to-be wife must consent. Of course, the man too, right? Without that consent, it creates problems and resentment if someone is forced into that type of situation, right? So that's where the offer and acceptance part comes into play. But it's the having the two witnesses there. In modern language and terminology, you have like an officiator of the wedding, which when you do like a court marriage and document it, there's an individual that's there. But of course, that's in this society, in this system, where you have that sort of documentation process. But in reality, when you have the witnesses, you have the offer and acceptance, and I don't know if we want to get into the differences of the madahib, but generally speaking, the woman has to have her guardian, right? Also agreeing and consenting to her going through with the marriage. I don't know if you want to get into that, get into that aspect, right? So from that aspect, it's quite simple. It's quite simple, and it doesn't cost you, except of course the stipulation of the mahar, which the woman can request whatever she wants. However, she should take into account and consideration what the man is capable of providing, right? And that is up to the woman. It is the right of the woman to stipulate that. But
you combine my question.
I think I don't have to repeat what the brother already mentioned. It happened to be I performed the Aqad Nikah last night. So as I was mentioning, that it takes about a minute when it comes to fulfill this contract. Yes, we can have fiery speeches for half an hour. That's a separate issue. That has nothing to do with the Aqad Nikah itself. That's basically is ijab wa qabul. You are doing offering and the acceptance between two parties, which is the bride and the bridegroom. And when it comes to the bride side, the acceptance of the wali is also important, as a must actually. According to the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's considered as zina if the wali is not wali's acceptance is not there. The guardians. Wali is the guardian. In most cases, of course, it's the father. But now, as the brother was saying, yes, there is the ikhtilaf about from the Hanafi perspective, and they allow it without the guardian's permission as well, as long as the bridegroom and bride are agreed on. So these are two things. There has to be two witnesses. Okay, so there has to be two witnesses there, and the last part is the mahar, which is the dowry, which is the husband gives to the wife, the bride, going to be wife, and that dowry is for the wife. It's not for the wife's father. It's not for the wife's brothers. If she gives it to somebody once it's hers, that's a different story. You can do whatever you want once you own something, but that is for her. Now, how much? I don't think that was a question. How much?
The next question is going to be what's meaningful slash reasonable. But obviously, in Islam, we know that we can't put a limitation on the mahar.
Yeah.
But what are some good principles?
I mean, again, it goes back to the same thing. about the taqwa is the idea that you are building this relationship. Taqwa, which is the consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you want to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what is this marriage, or as a Muslim, as a matter of fact, we should think of any relationship be built on. Okay? Any relationship. That we love each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So that's the idea. Now, about the mahar, you know the story of, many of us know the story of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh. It was becoming, women were asking for more and more mahar, and it was becoming difficult for the people to get married. So Umar got up one time and on the minbar, and he said he's going to put a limit for the mahar. And a woman got up and she said, who are you to put the limit when Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who says, yeah, it could be a qintar, and qintar is a big amount of gold. So if there is no limit set by Allah Azza wa Jal, who is Umar to put the limit? Umar's response was right away that the man is wrong and the woman is right, meaning referring to himself, Umar is wrong and the woman is right, and he took his words back. And this is a very important lesson for all of us to understand. And even in a husband and wife relationship as well. The moment you realize that you are wrong, man or woman, doesn't matter who you are, you have to understand, at the end, you are responsible in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we should never be, never let the ego come in the way to continue on the wrong path. Now, about the mahar, what could be good or bad? It's always considered as the lower the mahar it is, the better it is. But it does not mean that this is not the right. This is the right of the woman. Allah has given the right, and she can ask for whatever she wants. And if you don't think that you can pay, then okay, move on. Look for somebody who you can afford. That's not a problem. But the thing is, it is a right of the woman. She can ask. There were people in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam who married on this teaching part of the Quran. Just teaching part of the Quran, and even was allowed to give an iron ring. Even if it was iron ring, could have been given. So it's good to be lower, but if there's nothing wrong to ask for more either.
Just two quick things. Also keep in mind the cultural context of if you're marrying from someone outside of your ethnicity or background or culture. Keep in mind that they might have traditionally mahar that's quite a bit higher than you expect. So know that going in that might be a situation. And then number two item, subhanAllah, the mahar doesn't have to be paid all at once and right away from the guy's perspective, right? It can be stipulated that over time that total amount will be accumulated.
Jazakallah khair. This is just a very quick reminder for everyone that we will have a Q&A after, inshallah.
Do you have another more question about the mahar?
No, I don't have any more questions.
I want to clarify something else about the mahar. Okay, because I see probably half of the people here who are Desis, so they would know what I'm relating to, and it's important for us to know. And I know it's the same thing in Arab too, to be fair. Which is, people think of it, the higher the mahar is, the less chances of getting divorced. So what I mean by that is this: you put a higher limit, so you're guaranteeing now the guy is locked in. He cannot get out because he cannot pay the mahar now. Okay? And in the Desi culture, many of the time they think mahar is something, if you die or divorce, that's the time you pay. Okay, that's not the case. Mahar is a dain. If you have not paid it, now it's a dain. Dain means it's a debt on your neck. On the day of judgment, you can be held accountable for your mahar that you were supposed to pay to your wife. Okay, understand that. This is very important. What I'm saying about, especially that in the Indo-Pak culture, where it's referred as if that it is something that you pay when you if you die, or then from the taraka or from the viratha, then the wife will take some money as part of the mahar because he owed, or when he has to divorce, then he has to pay the money. Otherwise, mahar just okay, who cares? It's a very unfortunate reality that I'm talking about. Alhamdulillah, I think it's getting better, but it exists in the cultures.
Again, we will have a Q&A after, inshallah. So, brothers, if you have any ideas and questions, start getting that in mind. Sisters, if you have any questions, inshallah, you can write in the questions on the papers, or you can message your mahram and he can ask the question on behalf of you as well. Okay, so inshallah, we're going to go into the next piece now about roles in marriage. So, how do Islamic principles, this will be the only question in this topic because we're running a little short on time. How do Islamic principles such as mercy, justice, ihsan, translate into a real household roles in currently nowadays? What should we be aware of that in the context of Islam? What's the role of the husband and the wife, keeping these key Islamic principles in mind?
It's a tough one, man. Okay, so when we talk about the justice aspect of it, I want to bring this up something which is not only the marriage but in general. Justice is something like a cornerstone in all sorts of relationships in Islam, whether it's between husband and wife, with parents and the children, with your neighbors, as a whole state, whatever, or on a global level. Justice is one of the most important aspects in Islam, to the point Allah Azza wa Jal, He sent messengers from Adam alayhi salam to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam with one specific reason, as Allah Azza wa Jal says in Surah Al-Hadid. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسَلَنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, indeed, we sent messengers. He's not talking about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Messengers were sent with bayyinat, which is the proofs to recognize Allah Azza wa Jal, to prove for recognizing the wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the messenger and so on and so forth. And then say, وَأَنزَلْنَا مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابِ, and we reveal the book with them, the one that carries the guidance. وَالْمِيزَان, and the mizan that distinguishes between halal and haram, what is right, what is wrong. لِيَقُومَ النَّاسِ بِالْقِسْطِ, لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ. Now, this is the key part of this verse. So the people will establish justice among them. See, this book, the Bayyinat the Prophet came with, and the book and the Mizan, all those things are there for the people to establish justice among them. So hence, when it comes to the husband and wife relationship, of course there's justice is needed. There's a whole thing about the aqd when we talk about, there's aqd nikah, people go and do it. There's a contract. The purpose of the contract is that you are bound with this contract, and now you have to give each other their rights that due on you. So for example, the man is obliged for providing to the family. Okay? Whether the wife has her own wealth or not, whether she works or not, this is still the responsibility wise, it's man's responsibility. He has to take care of all that. Okay? So he is the one which is referred as the qawwamun. That he is the one who has Allah has made him the one to take care of the family. Okay. Now, from the wife, is obligation on her is to be the obedient wife to the husband. Because obedience is an obligation on the wife. Obedience, of course, is only in the ta'a, is only in ma'ruf, which is that the obedience is only in goodness. There is no ta'a in the ma'siyah. Ma'siyah is the sin. You don't obey, whether it's your husband or wife, whoever we're talking about. There's no obedience in the disobedience of Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay? So, when it comes to responsibilities are defined in the Quran and the Sunnah. There's a whole economic system that exists in Islam. The social system. Now, sorry, I'm taking too long. It's important to understand though. Today we are living in a time and era where we think of Islam only as do's and don'ts. It should not be looked at only do's and don'ts. Why I'm saying that it's not do's and don'ts is because this is not just to know what is halal and haram. Rather, Islam provides a system when it comes to social life. It's not just this is halal and haram in the social life. Rather, okay, how you implement the social system as well. So economy is not just to know what is a halal contract and a haram contract. Rather, how you implement this economic system. See, there's a difference between system and just knowing what is halal and haram in a specific category of life. And because we are not living in a time and era where we see these things and implementation, So we just look at Islam just from individualistic aspect of it, where I find out what is halal and haram and try to do those halal and haram, rather than knowing it's not only that I'm doing halal and haram or not, but on top of it, to make sure you give there's a surety that if somebody is not fulfilling the right of the other, then there are consequences in this dunya as well, if he or she is caught. And of course, the accountability in front of Allah Azza wa Jal is there. So that aspect of social life, or any kind of a life, should be also looked into, which I think we miss.
So I think just to add on a little bit to that, there has to be a mutual respect and love between the spouses, and that's what's going to create that trust, right? And will make it easier, in fact, for even the wife to obey the husband in the matters where, of course, that he mentioned in good, but at the same time for the husband to have that kindness and affection, right? Where Allah described that as mawadda wa rahma, right? In the Quran, that love and affection and mercy, that's what's characteristic of that marriage, right? And I think today the roles get skewed because you have this mindset of competition between the spouses, and that even comes into play from the discussions on from the default, how do you separate the finances, right? Or if a guy were to come and say, I need my wife to work and I require her to do that in order that she can pay 50% and I'll pay 50%. So that's more of a business side of that transaction. Yes, marriage is a contract, but it's different from a business in that respect, where you're trying to fulfill the rights that the wife has, and vice versa, right? You're trying to go above and beyond and give, and so going into the role of the husband, right? His requirement is to provide the necessities for the wife, for the children, for the family. If you were to take that at a very base concept, then you start getting into a debate. Is transportation a necessity? Well, it depends on the society that you're living in, and so on and so forth. If that's part of the urf or the customs of that society that's needed to travel around and fulfill the duties and get food and so on and so forth, right? But you could take a flip side and say that Islam only required this and this from me. The bare minimum maintenance, food, shelter, clothing. So therefore, with that mentality, I'm not gonna try to give gifts to the spouse, to the wife. I'm not gonna try to get things that are above what's required, right? That's when it becomes very transactional. Let me see what I can get out of that person in order to get what I want and reciprocate that, right? So that's what makes that idea of competition, and again, this goes into the topic of feminism on one side and the understanding of the competition between men and women, and then for the guy's side, you get into the masculinity and the red pill movement and how to dominate over the a lot of times they're not even discussing wife, they're discussing the woman, right? However many women, right? And the idea of being the qawwam, right? That was mentioned. Allah gave the husband a degree of authority because he's going to have accountability. There's accountability is always linked with authority in Islam, and hence the hadith that mentions the different levels of from the leader down to the husband, who's the leader of the family, as the shepherd in each of their circumstances, right? And then it also mentions that the wife would be responsible over the household of the husband, right, and to take care of matters. There's a lot of specifics we can get into, but that's a general overarching view.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, we are running out of time, so inshallah there'll be 2 questions. One person answers each one. You guys can go ahead and say it. Quick responses, and then we'll get to the Q&A, inshallah. First question is, what should couples or spouses, soon-to-be spouses, definitely cover before they sign a marriage contract? Anyone want to volunteer?
I mean, and I think you're more talking from the perspective of in the reality we are living in.
Yes, that's correct.
And that's what Islam is about. Yeah, we must be talking about the things that we discuss. Talk about the reality we are in, rather than talking about the reality does not exist. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the reality we are in is that dictates different kinds of rules and regulations for a marriage. And we understand that we are getting into a marriage that is on the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hence, we are bounding ourselves to the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So make sure that when you are getting into this contract, that it is emphasized that this contract is based on the Sharia of Allah Azza wa Jal, meaning we are bounding ourselves and reminding each other that we will follow the commands of Allah Azza wa Jal in no matter what situation we are in, at the time of ease or at the time of difficulty. In all those cases, we will make Quran and the Sunnah or the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the criterion for solving the problems. There will be ups and downs. I know it sounds like a long of a discussion, but that's a key thing. But there will always be ups and downs in the relationships. Yeah. And I want to just make sure one part that mentioned about about the authority in this contract. Look, no matter whatever contract you are in, somebody has to have a decisive power. Somebody has to make a decision. You cannot just say that, oh, we're gonna go with every time everybody will agree on every aspect. No, of course in the husband and wife relationship, most of the times you both agree on the things. But there are times where you are deadlocked. Somebody has to make a decision, right? I hope that makes sense.
Inshallah, then the very last question before we start the Q&A is
So that was not Q&A yet?
not yet the Q&A from the people. This is a little scripted.
Wait for the door.
Alhamdulillah. And there's also, and even I feel bad I'm not giving you guys justice to these questions. I'm kind of rushing you guys.
Yes, you are.
But it is what it is. Last question. What Western norms around relationships are actually harmful? And Western norms around relationships that are propagated is actually harmful for the Muslim man and woman. And how does nikah protect us from that? How does marriage protect us from that?
Okay, so when it comes to the Western norms, it goes back to what you prioritize, because and this goes back to our discussion even on social media, what you put up and the best image that you portray, right? And the Western norms are to show off from the husband's perspective, show off your wife. You know, you would consider that like a trophy wife. You want to display her, right? And unfortunately, that's something that's seeped in and creeped into our communities, where even on the wedding day, even if a woman is typically a hijabi and covers herself, she has many times, especially even coming from like a Pakistani background, pressures to show some of the hair and to dress up and to cover yourself with makeup in the wrong environments, right? So that'd be a person who is typically a hijabi, who now feels that pressure from whether it's their families or whatever it might be, right? In order to project that image. So it goes back to the materialistic perspective, to where all you have is that mountain of gold you're competing for. And where that a hadith that I'm paraphrasing, that if the son of Adam were to be given a mountain of gold, he would want another one. And that's the pursuit of materialism that's gonna cause you to be burnt out and spend your money and your time and your wealth, and then you're gonna get old and you're gonna lose the beauty that Allah has given you, or it's gonna diminish over time, right? It's natural, it happens, right? So to prioritize keeping up with the Joneses and putting on that image that our life is such and such, it's amazing, or you need to see our moments of happiness and our joy, where really that should be something that's intimate between the spouses. And another aspect I want to cover is that the aspect of friendship. A Western norm is guys and girls will hang out just in one setting that are obviously not family, not married, so on and so forth. You guys know how it is, right? And popular show like Friends will show like just the guys and girls hanging out together, and these are the shows that we're watching growing up. Hopefully we're not watching, but we've seen clips regardless, right? Whether we watched it or not. So that norm is drilled into your mind such that you're okay with your wife having friends that are guys, or the woman is okay with the guys having friends that are girls, women. That's something that's extremely dangerous. As I mentioned, even when you get married, Shaitan does not give up in order to try to tempt you and divert you away.
Jazakallah khair. So now we're done with the easy
Was
questions.
it him only?
Yeah, that's one. Now we're done with the easy questions. Now these are the unscripted questions from the audience, inshallah, that will hopefully find a sufficient answer. The first question. I heard that the mahr has to be an amount that would be enough to sustain / support her in case something happens to her husband. Is this true? Also, if the woman wants to set a mahr lower than what her family may be asking her to set it as, is that okay? Anyone is welcome to answer.
What was the last part? I didn't understand.
Yeah, the last one is also if the woman wants to set a mahr lower than what her family may be asking her to set it
Oh,
as,
okay.
is that okay?
Yeah. As I said, this is the right of the woman. This is the haqq of the woman, and that's what she is entitled for. Now, obviously, the wali has his own right over here as well. So his approval is also needed.
Even for the mahr?
Is needed for the aqd.
True.
So if he backs out, there's a problem here then. So obviously you have to have some conversation with your father as well. So that's important. Look, Allah Azza wa Jal has put these boundaries, and we should always think of it. There's definitely something good for us, even though what the society says or what the people say about this, right? Now, as far as what was the other part of it?
The first part, the second part.
No, the first part was about it should be for the whole year kind of thing people say, yeah.
Is support her in case something happens to her husband.
See, of course, as I said, the mahr can be anything that what she wants to be, and has to be accepted by the husband. That's fine. Now, does she want to be that, or 6 months, or a year, or 2 years, or 10 years, or 50 years, whatever? That doesn't matter. Why people think this way, that matters actually. Because today, we are living in a society where we think of every individual as he or she is just individual. Okay? They have nobody around them to take care of them, or nobody should be intervening with their life at all. In Islam, women is always taken care of. Look at this part. This is important for us to understand. Whether she works or she does not, even if she works, she must be taken care of. It could be the husband, it could be the father, it could be the grandfather, it could be the uncle, whoever. And when I'm saying taken care, it does not make a woman weak person. Only thing makes it, this is the right Allah has given, and the people who are accountable for taking care of them, they will be accountable in front of Allah Azza wa Jal. And if there is a system of Islam which is implemented, they can be held accountable by them as well. So because of absence of Islam in our lives, we are always talking about individual aspect of Islam. So even the women, they're thinking of what's going to happen if the husband dies. So we should be always thinking of, yes, that's true. There's a reason for the sisters to be worried about, and this is one of the means to resolve it. But we should work for
Not just
society in a manner that the one who are responsible, they must take care of their responsibility, and if they're not, then they should be held accountable.
Any
Just to add on, it's not just about the mahr. It extends to even when it comes to education. So many times you hear from the woman's perspective that they want to advance in their education and career just in case there'd be a divorce or something like that, where the woman now has to fend for herself, right? And in and of itself, of course, to seek that education in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with that. But again, this is born out of fear, and also because we don't have some of the Islamic institutions, obviously here in America, in place where it's more on an individual level, right? The fear comes into the mind of the woman that, what if my father is not able to take care of me, and I don't have that means to build a career for myself and to make money and to take care of the kids should something happen to my husband. Say not even a divorce situation, but say he were to pass away or something were to happen to him, right? So that is the fear that plays into the mind. But there's a second problem that emerges. The side effect of sometimes keep going higher in education is that the woman typically will look for somebody that has a higher degree than her, or higher status or higher income bracket and so on and so forth, right?
Mm.
So that can be a side effect that the sisters have to be careful of, right? At the same time, balancing and understanding that, look, getting your master's in doctorate and so on and so forth, like I mentioned, in and of itself is not a problem, but you have to keep that in mind too, because you're practically the pool that you're picking from, if you come with that mindset, is gonna become smaller and smaller, right? And that also leads to the delaying of marriage, right? And it's a bigger topic, but.
Yeah, sure. Second question is, when the Catholic tab, the actual, contract has been done, but the girl still lives at home until the wedding. Does the girl listen to her father, who she is still living with, or does she listen to her new husband, who she doesn't live with?
These are the real questions.
Naam?
These are the real questions.
Real question. What's the real answer? If somebody knows the answer, please go ahead. Because I'm telling you the truth, I'm not sure about the answer, so I'm not going to give the answer about this. But what my understanding about the subject is, I will give. But I would say if somebody is aware of the answer and help me out here, Jazakallah khair. Yes.
Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah said that once a woman is married, the obedience belongs to the husband over the father.
But do you understand what the question was?
Yeah, if the woman moves, she has not yet moved in with her husband.
Yeah. So the answer was about that.
Yes.
Ibn Taymiyyah answered that when she's living with the father.
Not specifically that, but like once the nikah contract is done.
Oh, that's so everybody understand that. But the question is, what if she is living with the father still? He's the one who's taking care of.
They're still married though, technically.
Yes,
So
yes.
I feel like it would apply.
Okay. Yes.
If the father has not officially given her away, it's just a contract. She's still under the care of the father. Then she has to obey the father until the day he has given her away. That's the one when she has to obey the husband, not the father anymore.
I mean, just a clarity, obeying whom for what? We have to know what are we obeying for first.
I mean, obviously the question is about if there is a deadlock situation where the husband wants something else and the father wants something else, who should she
One
listen
is
to?
right, where is the right thing?
Both are right. That's the idea. The mubah, action is mubah. Both are mubah. For example, husband wants to take her out and the father said no.
True.
That's the question I think that should ask.
Yeah.
I'm just giving a valid scenario. It's action is halal for her to go out with the husband. Now, does the father have this? Look, I don't want to give an answer if I'm not sure about.
Yeah.
This is why I am just saying it simply. I am not sure about this. I need to do a little bit of more research on this subject. Okay? And I don't want to just say, yes, you have the answer.
Can you walk through? No, I don't have the answer. But I do have a mechanism that which to get to the answer. Because really what it's all predicated on is the fact of the contract. What is the contract at that point? And then from there, work your way. That's what I would do.
Okay.
I'm not a chef or anything. I leave that to you, Asim.
Just real quick, we can research the answer, because at the end of the day, it's a fiqh response,
Yes,
right?
that's-
So a fiqh response meaning he's signing off on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the answer, which he doesn't want to do. So he can research it, and once he has the answer, or if he finds
Yeah.
the answer,
Let's put it this
someone
way.
more qualified who has the answer, he can respond.
Yeah.
So you can give
Yeah.
any time for other questions.
This one is saved, inshallah.
So let me give the other things that we are discussing here, right? And this is, I think, the brother was hinting towards. Now, the first, once the aqd nikah has happened, now they are husband and wife. It is the brother who was talking about that, Ibn Taymiyyah guy. Okay, so they are husband and wife. Number one thing. So they are mahram to each other now.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what are the things they can do? They can do whatever husband and wife can do in general when it comes to their relationship wise. Okay. Now, about the conditions, as the brother is talking about, of course, there's an issue about the conditions, that if the conditions are already there and it's accepted by the bride and the groom, then they have to follow those conditions, if the conditions were placed. But what if the conditions were not placed? This is where the whole gray area comes in. A gray area for me. Maybe there are people who have, of course, the person who has answered, khalas, this is it. But I have to get the answer. But I want to make sure that people understand that. For example, if that groom and the bride, they have spent time alone, okay? Whether they have done what a husband and wife can do or not, if they have spent time together, okay, and there was nobody there, now she is eligible for the full mahar. Okay, now she's eligible for the full mahar if the divorce happens. But if they are just have done the aqd and they never were in the situation
Of seclusion.
intimacy
Intimacy
or
or
seclusion, actually, as a matter of fact, it's not even intimacy.
Yes.
It could be just seclusion, and enough seclusion that can be thought of as something can happen between them, yeah? So now, if that does not happen, then divorce happens in those circumstances, then the mahar is half. Whatever was decided on, then the half is given. So these are some practical things that whoever is getting into aqd nikah should be aware of. Okay, so that's their halal, they can talk to each other, they can know about each other more and more, and that's the one of the reasons behind people doing the aqd nikah, and even if they are not taking the wife home or something.
Jazakallah khair.
But other part, I will restrict to myself my answer, because if I don't know, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I have the question saved, inshallah, and we will dig for the solution and answer for that, inshallah. I'm going to limit this for 20 minutes more, khalas, no more, no less, because, alhamdulillah, there are a lot of questions, so we'll stop it there.
I think
In terms of
it's okay to continue on,
Yes,
as much as we can answer, I would say.
yes.
And
Malik,
if
these are the questions from the young shabab.
I agree, I
All of
agree.
them. So you-
he's worried about his questions, bro.
No, we're good.
One-on-one.
Interest of time, if you guys are willing to,
ask the
are you, this audience willing to
Take a
stay for
vote,
another
yeah.
hour?
Take a vote.
Take a vote, everyone raise your hand if you're willing to stay another 30 or 40 minutes.
Let's keep
Just
going.
summarize the answer.
Yeah, khalas, done.
So,
No, they're all different, mashallah.
So from my end, even though Harris probably gonna leave, I'm okay with, look, if I have energy to give the answers, I'm here inshallah, and if I can answer, I will give the answers, and I think it's good to answer them as much as we can. And if anything we cannot answer, of course, we'll say we cannot answer, inshallah, we'll get the answer.
I've been vetoed. Okay, let's start. What method should we use to judge the character and deen of the spouse before the marriage to make sure that she/he has the deen you are looking for? I want to say has, but
Yeah, so from the woman's perspective, I mean, when you're assessing the character of the man, how is he making his money? If he does have a job at that time, right? Is he involved in, for example, in things that are clear-cut haram, whether that comes to certain financial aspects of being involved in a riba, for example, right? Or similar, or is he part of a company that's such and such that's obvious to you that's you don't want to be associated or you don't want to earn from that risk, right? So that's one quick way to do it. Another way to do it is to understand that if you know somebody that knows that individual, going back to what we were talking about before, do they frequent themselves in open conversations and hanging out with the opposite gender, for example, because that's a red flag and something that can continue after marriage as well, right? So that's another thing. There's a couple of questions that come to mind too. When you have the opportunity to discuss with the prospective spouse, that's when you're gauging their answers and their responses. Does this person tend to be an individual that will refer back to and think to what does Islam say about such and such, even if they don't know the answer? Whether they know the answer or not is secondary, but are they looking for it in terms of Islam, right? In terms of their understanding of the authority of the husband when it comes to a matter of dispute, right? Do they understand that? How do they understand what's their view on, for example, I would ask the question, taking out loans, right? Especially when it comes to mortgages and these type of things. Are you comfortable with that? What's your view on that? Because that's one way you can gauge how the person uses and plans to use their finances, right? Do they have any debts that they need to settle? And if they do have debts, what are they for? You know, are they tied with again, going back to riba and contracts and whatnot, right? So based on the transactions, you can get to know a lot about how the person prioritizes their life, right? And I've known individuals that have left certain careers or left a job offer because they didn't want to get into a gray area or a clear-cut matter that was haram, right? So that brings up that person in my estimation of how they prioritize the deen, right? These are real life matters, right? You had to study. How did you go about that? You had to do such and such. How did you go about that? Did you maybe let offers go or let things go that you knew were going to be problematic. Those are some of the ways that I would assess how that person is thinking.
Jazakallah khair. Any thoughts on this at all?
I mean, I'll go back to the example I gave about Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. Yeah? How do you evaluate, how do you judge a person, whether it's a man or a woman? The way you judge is, I'm not talking about now husband and wife have to live with each other for a day or something, then they will know. Obviously, that's not what we mean by that example I mentioned. But in this case, you are looking for a person who can vouch for that person also, right? So you gather information for your spouse that you are going to get married with. I mean, when people hire a person for a job, this is way more than a job we're discussing when talking husband and wife relationship. They go for all sorts of interviews to figure out the personality and all those things, and then they look for references.
Yes.
So references matter because those people who are vouching for, they are the one who have lived with that person for a certain period of time that they can really talk about that what kind of person a person is, man or woman. Yeah. So to look for those in general actions that what kind of life they are living.
Jazakallah khair. Next question is, can two young people do their aqd nikah or marriage contract but live separately, each in their parents' homes until the man is financially stable? Is that allowed? Yes or no?
That they can live together?
No, that they're living separately after the aqd, after the actual contract is written. Is it fine for them, okay, halal, allowed, for them to live separately until the man is financially stable? So during that time, they'd be under obviously, her parents would be taking care of her.
Yeah.
He would be trying to build up his wealth until he's financially ready. So he got the marriage first, but he's still not financially ready. Give it some time.
Okay, so that's a contractual thing, right? Again, it's the issue of the contract, how the contract was done. Your contract was this, that you want to get this aqd nikah done, you are husband and wife, and they agreed from the beginning that she's gonna live with her father. Look, otherwise the husband does become responsible
Yes.
for taking care of the daughter.
Yes.
Okay, so husband is the caretaker after the marriage is done. But if the contract was that a certain period of time that they agree on to something, then it's okay. But if otherwise the husband, if a marriage is concluded, then husband is the one who's the guardian now, and he should be the one providing to the wife.
Jazakallah khair. Any comments, Faz? No? Okay. Next question. Forgive me if I'm not reading this correctly, but it took me a while, but I think I got it. Sometimes we as women, a lot of times, feel isolated even in the presence of our whole family and spouse and kids. Is it something not religious to ask for the attention from your husband and demand it? Do we, and then in parentheses men, need to get more education to understand this?
Can I read that again?
You can go
Yeah,
ahead.
That's a long question.
I think the gist of the question is that the wife feels secluded in the family. She doesn't feel like she's getting the attention and that she deserves and that she should get as being the mother, as being the wife. Is it okay for her to demand that? Or does she have to keep on bearing that and just live with it and get sabr and patience and wait for the ajr from Allah subhanahu wa
Did
ta'ala?
you understand the question properly?
Not entirely. The way what I had understood from it is here the stress of feeling isolated. It's saying in the presence of
your family, and even in the presence of your family, in your kids. And if we still can't get it, understand it, I think the second piece of our question is probably true. Need
yes.
more
Okay. So do men need more education to understand this? Well, this type of education, I don't think
Can
you're
I
gonna.
suggest something? If you don't understand the question, ask the person to make it more understanding, or have somebody already, instead of wasting time. You have so many questions.
This,
I got the question.
The question is from the sister side, so I can't.
I got the question.
Ask the madam to go and.
No, I
find out.
understood the question now. I was reading again and again. So first of all, let's see, you get the point here. By the question itself, sometimes it becomes complicated between husband and wife to know
Yes.
what's going on. That the other person has been isolated. See the point here? Even whether it's from the sister side or from the brother side, we can see that it's difficult for sometimes husband and wife to understand each other. I'm not saying this is from my wife, but I'm just saying that it can happen. But so now the part about to be isolated, yes, and it is a very fair demand to ask for attention if the attention is lost for whatsoever reason. And that's what the relationship is about, that both of them, husband and wife, they expect due respect, due attention from each other for whatever matter has been discussed. Yes, it happens sometimes that the spouses, they can sometimes grow into different directions. And this is where the problem lies, yeah? And this is where the isolation sometimes comes in. And we have to make sure that that does not happen. And to limit that, the husband and wife, they have to be open with each other, meaning that if they feel anywhere that they have been isolated or cornered in a relationship, then fill the gap that's growing between them. That's what I would say.
Yeah, and this aspect of isolation, so it does go back to that communication, and sometimes you in order to facilitate this, you have to be willing to listen to the grievances of the other, right? And sometimes what ends up happening, unfortunately, when that open line of communication and trust is not there between the husband and wife, over time these things will actually get worse. And you're not able to, for the right reasons, even account the other, right? Which means you're not comfortable speaking to that individual about that, right? And I think from the man's perspective, sometimes it's difficult because you feel like if you're opening up even about issues or being willing to listen to issues from the other side, from the wife, you almost feel like you're vulnerable or you're gonna be put on the spot, right? And that's why that aspect of marrying for the sake of Allah comes into the picture, right? Because you go in knowing that through this, living with somebody in a way that your spouse will understand you more than your parents ever did from some perspectives, right? And because you're going to have that constant feedback from your spouse. I mean, they're going to see you at your best. They're going to see you when you're angry and you're assembling furniture at your worst, right? And so that's where the reciprocity on giving feedback and taking feedback is important, right? And there's another aspect of consultation that I want to bring up. Think to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, where the companions are upset that why did we sign this treaty? How come we're agreeing to these demands of the mushrikeen of Quraysh? How come? It looks like we're walking away in a defeated position, where Allah refuted that, right? We know that. In that situation, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam seeks the consultation and advice from his wife Salama. And she advises, perform some of the rites and the rituals of Hajj, so the companions will see you shaving your head and slaughtering the sheep and so on and so forth, right? And then Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam takes that advice from his wife, and he starts to do that, and the companions follow suit. And then Allah sends ease upon their hearts, and then so that's one of the items. When you had asked Malik, what were the things that you prioritize, right? You should prioritize intelligence. You should, but the right type of intelligence. And the sister asked, do you get that through education? Yes, but probably not in school, right? That's more of the emotional intelligence that comes from sitting down and listening to each other, even before marriage, listening to the other Muslims around you and understanding where they're coming from, and being able to live with some of the problems sometimes you have between each other and working through them, right? And having that sabr and compassion. That's really what I think it goes
in addition to the question, actually, as well. Not to make it any more harder. But the addition to the question is actually, what if you feel yourself you're in a situation where you're stuck in traps, and that you tried and it's just not working out with the husband, and they're not doing anything at all, it's not working, not reciprocation, there's no reciprocation happening. What avenues can I try and take?
So we're talking about, in reality, conflict resolution here.
Yes.
If there is a conflict that's causing some sort of some sort of issues between the husband and wife relationships now. So in general, Islam paves the path of how to resolve the issues, and it all depends on what kind of issue that is. Yeah, and if it really requires that you can't do it, you can get a person from mediator from the wife's side, a mediator from the husband's side, and they can both together and mediate the issue as well. That's another way of conflict resolution. And besides that, of course, the husband and wife themselves also can do certain things to resolve the issue as well. But if we are talking about they can't do it at all, and now they are looking for other venues, then this is the first step that you start with.
Just a brief comment to add on. So they call it the honeymoon phase fades pretty quickly, right? Give it a week, 2 weeks, give it a month, and then you start to see some of everyone has negatives that they portray. Everyone, the husband, the wife, right? Those are going to start to come out. And if you're looking for a perfect spouse, you're not going to find one, because you yourself are going to have your weaknesses, and you have to acknowledge that, really, going into it.
Okay. Next question. You guys talked about deen being the most important trait, but this is assuming the woman is a Muslim. What is the ruling about a woman who is a Christian or a Jew?
So Islam allows a man to marry from the woman from the Ahl Kitab, which is referred as the Yahud and Nasara. But there's another clause which a lot of time people miss, which is talking about the woman should be muhsana, and we're talking about a pure woman. So you have to be careful about that aspect of it. Second, if a person is getting engaged in a situation where marrying Ahlul Kitab, in the time of Umar al-Khattab, by the way, Umar was the opinion of the Muslims should not be marrying the Ahlul Kitab, even though he understood that. And Hudayfa bin Yaman, radiallahu anhu, he's the one who married one of the women from Ahlul Kitab. And Umar talked to him and he's saying, are you saying it's haram? And he said, no, I'm not saying it's haram. Umar did not say that it was haram. He was giving precautions about that. Imagine that they were living under the rule of Islam, and Umar was so concerned about this aspect of it, to marry from Ahlul Kitab. Now living in the situation where the law of Allah is not there on us, the one who will make sure that all the conflicts are resolved according to Kitab Allah or Sunnah Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, then how big of a mess that marriage can be, especially when you are already at the mercy of the society that plays a huge role in raising the families. And I use the word family, not children only. People just think of all the time only children. No. The whole family is growing within the society, and they are impacted. Now, if you keep somebody who is not a Muslim, who does not have any belief system is not according to Islam, that can create a bigger mess within the family. So now that aspect is here. So now, as you can see, that Islam allowed that. Yeah. Similarly, when a person goes for a marriage and he does not, he does not make deen as the highest priority. Is the marriage valid? Yes, marriage is still valid. It's the suggestion from Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that says that if a person has not married for the sake of the deen, his hands are in the dirt. Yeah. So now, so that's a serious situation a person can put himself in, and I would highly recommend to the brothers who are thinking or getting engaged in that kind of marriage, they have to think forward. Think of it when you are marrying a woman, not only a wife. Think of it as a mother of your children as well. Okay.
Any comments?
And when it comes to what kind of things to ask or not to ask, I do recommend people utilize, whether you make that questionnaire yourself or have that ready when you go into that situation, and actually fill it out yourself. There's one that I used myself before I had gotten married. I had filled it out. I had at that time my future wife fill it out too, to kind of bring out the questions about finances, about authority, leadership, friendship, so on and so forth, conflict resolution, and it goes through many questions, right? And I can, after the fact, I can share that with anybody that's interested.
Jazakallah khair. Next question. Is it the bride's right to ask for a large qaddam and a large mu'akhar for the sake of making more money? How can we know whether or not it's her intention versus her parents/family? In qaddam and mu'akhar.
So the question is about the mahar. Mahar can be so referring to whether it's given upfront or delayed payment. So the mahar can be given upfront as a whole amount, and it's of course has to be agreed on, yeah. Or it could be like portion of it is given right away, and the portion will be given later. And you can set a date also if you want, or you can set a date in a manner it's connected to the, for example, death or divorce, whichever way you want to do it. That's allowed now. Now the question is about the amount. So it's not an issue of questioning the niyyah, because what the wife or the to be wife is asking for, it is from Allah Azza wa Jalla. Allah allowed it. It's the haqq of the wife to ask for the mahar. Now again, it goes back to, it's up to you to accept that or not. You can have other options.
Next question. Who can agree to let the bride be married if the bride's father and uncle have passed away? Who acts as the guardian?
So in the Sharia, there are different levels are mentioned about who should be the guardian. It's the same way who's the one who will be taking care of the girl as well, of the woman as well. So in Islam, the order is mentioned in a manner: if the father is not there, then the grandfather or the uncle or the brother. So all those people they can act as the guardian in the absence of the right-of-way guardians are missing. Now, I can just add a question to it. So for what about a person who is a woman who is from Ahlul Kitab now? So who will be the guardian of that? Because the non-Muslim cannot be the guardian of the girl. Now you can. So in that circumstances, of course, then somebody, of course, a judge appointed by the state, Islamic State, for example, is there, can be, or the Khalifa himself can be. If those things are not there, then within the community, an imam or the person who is of a status that is recognized by the community, he can act as the guardian of that girl to get her married. Now, of course, you can have a circumstances. There can be many permutations, right? A girl can be from Ahlul Kitab and the father has become a Muslim.
Yes.
So that's a different story, of course. I'm talking about if the father is not a Muslim. In that case, how you deal with it. Make sense?
This is an interesting question. Can I have a nikah for multiple girls?
Like one
nikah for
does that mean one sitting?
There's no clarification on the question.
One contract.
I'm assuming one contract.
Look, there's a simple rule in Islam: you cannot have multiple contracts in one contract. Okay, simple rule, and that applies to any kind of a contract. You don't have two contracts in a contract. So whether it's a buying and selling or a marriage and all those things, no, it has to be a different contract for different person.
Okay.
By the way, it's a question because I'm sure the one who wrote it
Yes.
is thinking about it.
Yeah.
But people are writing the questions.
Oh, it's the first time I've heard the question. It's a good question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jazakallah khair, Abu Malik, to raise this question.
Next question.
Is it your home tonight?
Next question. How should someone go about seeking a righteous spouse if their family is not practicing such supportive and says things such as, if your wife wears hijab or niqab, we will not attend the wedding because this is extreme?
Look, it's a very simple, I don't want to make it simplistic and an answer. Of course, the answer is simple. The consequences may not be simple. Consequences can be drastic, and that's what the hidden question is.
Yes.
Look, we have to understand what is the purpose of life. Purpose of life is not getting married. Purpose of life is to worship Allah Azza wa Jal. And anyone who comes in the path of worshiping Allah Azza wa Jal, preventing us to worship Allah the way He should be worshipped, we should have a question mark for that kind of personality. It could be a father, it could be a mother, it could be whoever.
Mm.
So we should not compromise our deen just because it will make certain people happy. Look, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself was given options by the Meccans to the point they were discussing things with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a manner they wanted him to compromise. And Allah Azza wa Jal in Surah Al-Isra, when it talks about it, Allah says that if you incline just a little bit towards it, we will punish you twice, double in this dunya and double in the akhirah. Talking to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So who are we to think of these kind of ways? Oh man, let me make this person happy or that person happy. What's the term expression they use? Cut the corners. Cut corners, not the cut the corners.
No.
Cut corners.
No.
Okay, so cut corners. So we should never ever be thinking of this way. Yeah? Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It says, فَلَا تُطِعِ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ, that do not follow the deniers. Okay, those deniers of course could be in any ways. They could be kuffar and they could be whatever they're denying. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَدُّوا لَوْ تُدْهِنُوا فَيُدْهِنُونَ. That is, they want you to compromise, become soft, a little bit soft, so they will become soft to you. Yeah, see, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was talked to by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the manner, so he does not incline a bit by giving up any part of the deen. So obviously Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not going to incline towards the kuffar. Allah protected him. Yeah, he was ma'soom. Allah protected him. It's more of a command for us to understand that if we are in the situation, don't think twice about this, that giving in the deen or giving up on any of the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will somehow gain some love or some sort of attention from some people. Even if they do we want us to be punished for these kind of actions on the Day of Judgment? No, none of us. So think of it as when we say this is built on taqwa, that's what it means by that. That we are, as Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh, when he asked Ubay bin Ka'b radiallahu anh about taqwa, what is taqwa? And he said, have you walked through a path with the thorns? What do you do? So he said, well, I take care of my sleeves and my clothes in a manner that they do not get stuck with the thorns. So this is the life. This is the taqwa, life of the taqwa that we're talking about. There will be people who will be pulling us in the direction to displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it might always be attractive. Shaitan make the things attractive to us that in disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So let's not be the ones who are fooled by shaitan in the manner that cause us loss in this dunya and akhirah.
So
The simple answer is, of course you don't follow, but I think I did not answer part of it. So you approach your parents and whoever those people are, remind them of what is at stake. Okay? You don't just turn your face away. Oh, I gotta marry the woman. Khalas, this is it. Doesn't matter how many people I make them angry, and I'm gonna go with it. No, you go with the parents. Parents are people that you are supposed to respect them no matter what. Respect goes on, but if we really love our parents, don't we want them to be in Jannah also? And if we do, then we should be sincere to them as well. Whether they are parents, whether they are brothers and sisters, whoever they are, take the message and explain to them why you think this way, and that's what they're showing to them or what they expect from them is incorrect, and that can displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we should be sincere to the people we are interacting with, and remind them and do the amr bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar in a manner that we want to pull them out of the mistakes as well, not to show them I am right now or I am better than you by any means. Rather, it's an obligation from Allah Azza wa Jalla that we are accountable for that, to enjoin the good and forbid the evil. Yeah.
In that situation, it's that there's a much bigger thing I have to deal with. Not even the marriage now is even the question, but rather how do I help my parents change and not be held accountable for this sin.
Yes.
So if I can just add a little bit onto that, the biggest thing from a man's perspective again, going back to being qawwam, right? And that with leadership, there's going to be accountability. One of the toughest things as a man that you're going to have to take care of is, how do I balance my relationship with my wife, with my kids? How do I try to keep my parents, respect my parents and honor them, but at the same time honor my spouse, right? And that's especially important for the man, because if you're in a situation, for example, where even your father, let's say, for example, and may Allah protect us from this, let's say even your father comes and says something disrespectful or disparaging about your wife, you're the one that is going to have to come and shut that down. That's not going to be an easy task, and that's something that you're going to have to mentally prepare yourself for, right? Whatever it might be, commenting on weight, commenting on whether that's in our presence or out of our presence, commenting on the fact that she should do things like this and this, and how come she's doing that, or I don't like this. You have to defend the honor of your spouse. At the same time, may Allah protect us from this. If your spouse is saying things that they shouldn't be about your parents, you're gonna have to shut that down too, in the best of ways, right? And put an end to that, like that negative talk. And you shouldn't be doing that yourself to her parents, right? And that's a whole nother complication. But in marriage, you have to balance all of these things. You know, your in-laws, her in-laws, which are your parents, and so on and so forth, right? How do you keep that harmony? And not divulging yourself the secrets that are between you and your wife. That's huge, you know? Going out and even speaking negatively. And even, I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember the hadith exactly, but talking about how if you find, is it a deficiency in your spouse, know that there's...
Yeah, it's the other better things. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that there's other things that are good things about them, right? And that goes both ways.
Okay.
There's I think we're almost at the end right now.
No, there's more.
Keep going, okay. So,
Get to the fruits over there.
there's one thing to remember here, right? And I see, mashallah, there's young men who are not married, and they are very interested in knowing all those answers that we're trying to give here. Whether they're not married or they're already married, we must learn about these relationships that we have or we are getting into. What does Allah wants from us in those circumstances that we are going to get in? So the knowledge is important for us to gain. Any action that we undertake, we must know about the hukum shari regarding it. Okay? So there has to be a learning process. And don't expect you can just throw a question every time and you will get the answer. While you are in a relationship, you need the answer while you are dealing with the person. So you have to know at least the basics of the relationship, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. And inshallah that can play a good one. And it has to be both, not just one. If one person is trying to follow Islam and the other party is not, that can be problematic. So you have to have the same base of right and wrong and looking at the thing from the right angle. And then it becomes easier to sometimes give up your opinions that you might think is correct, or when you find you're wrong, you give it up because you know this is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your life is for Allah. And you know, just a quick thing. You know, there's a verse that has been recited in many of the weddings and the marriages, which were from Surah Rum. Yeah? And I'm blanking out, so I have to look for it.
Okay.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. Here Allah Azza wa Jalla is referring to there are signs. And I know people will talk about the mawadda and the rahmah and all those things, and they're signs for the people who think, yeah? There's something else I want to make sure that we take from here, which is, when Allah is saying there are signs, every time we think of a sign, when I was driving down here, there are many signs I had to follow to get to this place. Okay? So what is the purpose of these signs? These signs are leading to Allah Azza wa Jal. So we recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even in the marriage, the spousal relationship that we have, there are signs for us to reach Allah Azza wa Jal, to recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to understand how much of a need we are in of Allah Azza wa Jal. So that's what the sign is. Every time we talk about sign, there must be a purpose. the sign leads to something. What is it leading to? The signs are leading to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this marriage must lead us towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Must lead us in a manner we can please Allah, fulfill the purpose of our life, and be successful not only in this dunya but in the akhirah, inshallah. I hope that makes sense.
Jazakallah khair. In the Hanafi and other schools of thought, if a daughter has chosen a suitor, but the wali does not agree, can the wali still direct her to consider other suitors even though she does not want to?
Wali.
Sorry, wali. Did I say wali? Sorry.
It's okay. So wali, the guardian part, and I already mentioned the aspect regarding the difference of opinion, the ikhtilaf that exists. Yeah. So that's the issue with the ikhtilaf, and then that will go back to the relationship between the father and the girl also. Obviously, the opinion that if she is following, it can give her a way to marry. But I would highly recommend to the people who are following this opinion, please go study this opinion, the basis of the opinion as well. I'm not trying to sway you away from that. Even by the way, the Ahnaf, they do not say that the wali has no say anymore. They just say that the contract can be valid without that. So, but it's a highly recommended thing even in the Hanafi madhab that to get the approval of the wali as well.
Any comments? Okay. Some of our
Sorry,
own.
I forgot to mention something
Go
very
ahead.
important. And for the sisters who are trying to think of this way without the wali marriage and stuff, let's not forget who the father is, a wali. I don't think you will find anyone who would love somebody without any kind of need or anything that the father has for the children. Yeah, this is a very important kind of a relationship Allah has created, parents and the children in general. Yeah, and there's no father in general, I don't think in general would want anything harmful or bad happen to their children. Okay, so do not just out of whatever reason that you are not listening to your parent. Of course, if they're asking you to do something haram or something, that's a different story. But if they are trying to keep you within the limits of Islam and recommending you somebody, hear them out. What are their reasonings as well? So don't just put a cross on your father and say, oh no, he doesn't want something good for me. Hear him out, and if you still don't think that this is not something good for you, and you follow that specific opinion between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I hope that you are following the opinion because you believe that that is the right opinion, not choosing because you want to disobey the father.
This is a question from the brother, so if I don't explicitly say the question correctly, please let me know and feel free to speak up and say the question if you want to. Some of our homegrown live in very toxic households, men and people, where we saw our parents fighting and getting into hectic debates. Now we are growing and have a very bad image of relationships between, husband and wife, and think twice or more to even consider to get married. What to do?
So, for starters, this is a very difficult situation for, so every spouse is going to fight. It's going to happen, right? But obviously, we're talking about more extreme cases where the child is seeing the issues between their parents, right? And it's causing them to fear getting into a relationship themselves, right? First off, from the child's perspective, Allah knows best, but typically I don't believe the child will be the one to solve the disputes of their parents. And there's many reasons for that. It's a dynamic between the children and the parents that in that situation, as the child who might be seeing fights between your parents, your job is really to maintain the love for both of them. Regardless of the situation, obviously we're not talking about a situation of abuse or so on and so forth. That's different, right? But you're not taking sides yourself, and you're showing that love and mercy to both your parents. That's your responsibility as a child. So we have these type of things called generational trauma, right? Where you grow up seeing something, and you're so affected by it so much so that it starts to influence your life and your behavior, and you start to pass that on to the next generation, right? It's not an easy thing, but the first part of it is recognizing that this is an issue, and this is something I can inshallah do better with, right? And that's easy to say, and it's harder to do and overcome that, because you think that might carry on into your marriage. That's the part of fear, right, that you have to break and overcome. But at the same time, when you see these negative things in your parents, right, like I mentioned, everyone has negatives about them, right? When you see negative things in your parents, don't throw everything out. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Everything that they taught you, and recognize that yes, they had these, but they also taught me this, and this. You know, how to be a person, how to grow up, and so on and so forth. That situation requires individual help, so it's hard to give an answer on it. But those are the generalities, I would say.
Any comments?
Yeah, it's a good question, and just want to clarify a few things. Number one thing is each one of us is accountable for our own actions. So now, even if a person has gone through some traumatic life in the past, from seeing parents, for example, fighting for whatsoever reason, once you grow older, you are a mature person. You are accountable for your actions. Now, if you feel that as if you are impacted by some sort of a trauma or something, yes, seek help about how to resolve that. But at the same time, be careful that it's really that there is a trauma that's playing the role, or you're looking for a scapegoat that to put the blame on somebody else. You know, Shaitan plays the tricks in a very strange ways, to the point. He himself, Shaitan, when he disobeyed Allah Azza wa Jal, to not bowing down to Adam alayhi salam, he accused Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his misguidance actually. Adam, Iblis, he blamed Allah Azza wa Jal for that. And then he promised Allah that he will make sure the children of Adam will be misguided. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him he has the time, he's given the time until the day of judgment. Whoever follows him, Allah will fill the Jahannam with him and his followers. Okay? But the ones who have the ones who will not follow him and they follow the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Iblis will not have any sultan over them. Okay? So that's, having said that, why am I discussing this? Because it is connected to the very same thing as well. Because I don't want us to go out like this all the time thinking of putting a blame on somebody else for our actions. We are accountable for our actions. لَهَا مَا كَسَبَتْ وَعَلَيْهَا مَا اكْتَسَبَتْ. Okay? So we are accountable for what we do. But if we feel that we have no control anymore over our actions, then probably we have to reach out to some sort of a help, medical help or whatsoever kind of a help, where we can find a peace with ourselves and we feel like we have control over us. Now, about that, of course, I can have situations, and you have to really evaluate yourself. Are you doing that? Your action is response to whatever happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago? Or is it just an excuse? Distinguish between these two things and look for a solution. Inshallah, I will help you.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Alaikum salam.
I really enjoyed this beautiful lecture. I've been involved in this situation with kids, young kids, adults for a long time, 20 years. I'm with it like 30, 40 years. Our stress was different. We're not thinking about what we're thinking about now, about our kids. It was pretty easy back then. Okay? It's getting tougher and almost impossible for those young kids to get married where they want to get married. Top is starting with the parents. Always. It's not Indian, Pakistani, or Arab issues. It's pretty common. But with the Mehad, I have noticed that they ask, if the girl's not asking, the parents are asking. Like 100,000, 200,000, I've seen it. I was involved in that. So it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. How are we gonna do it? Mufti Mac, Yasi Qadi, Sheikh Rashid, they says that somebody asking this, just turn around, don't get married there. And why, I do not understand, I've read a lot, but could not find the right answer. We are, where we are, from what part of, most of our kids are born here. Us, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, whatnot, Arabs. So what Islam says about, okay, I know for sure the girl and the guy, they like each other, they went to school same place, university same place, but parents said no, because it's not from where you cannot get married. And what about Hanafi says about without wali, that's one of the reasons. It's true, best of my knowledge. So how are we gonna resolve it? Some big Islamic center, they are having a counseling. Before they get married, they are having a counseling. Here too, here are some places where are having that too. So that's my question is, actually, if we can do it again, the same thing.
Oh, a discussion like this?
I want to just a comment on your comment. Actually, it's not a question, more of a comment what you
Yeah,
mentioned.
this is
Yeah.
it. That's
Yeah.
how it is.
Barakallah fi, actually.
That's our piece, because a lot of people say don't say. So, I mean, you says Mahara is that's her right? But there's no limit.
Yes.
So where Ijtihad comes in now, our Mufti Meg is not a joke. Sheikh Yasser Qadi is not a joke. They said don't do this. I talked to him that.
So, Barakallah fiqh, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you Jazakallah khair for all the efforts that you have made for these kind of conflict resolutions and stuff in your time, and still doing probably. Just make sure that we understand that yes, the problems may seem to be evolving into much bigger of a monster nowadays. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent us in a time, He has definitely given us the capability of handling those problems. But I want to make sure we understand that why we are seeing all those problems. You're very right about this. It's not an issue of what part of the world you're from. Once you are here and the children are born and raised here, they have adopted the societal norms of this society. Not all of them, but they are, whether they're adopted or not, they are impacted by that. And so are we. Whether we came from different countries and we live here, there are things that we get impacted with. So I would also say that for people who want to get married, think of this way, that now, mashallah, you are able to see through those problems that we are discussing. So be the one, look for a wife who can help you, not to be just husband and wife only, but be a couple or be a husband and wife who can work in a manner together to bring Islam back in our lives the way it's supposed to be. Look for a spouse like that, who can help you to attain the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal, which is needed today in this time and age. It's always the case among the Muslims. Whatever problems that they were going through, people rose up and they dealt with the problems. Now here, it's a societal issue we're discussing to an extent. Then we have to know how to change the society. How to change the society at large in the world. So people will really be able to worship Allah Azza wa Jal the way it's supposed to. So we cannot continue to just talk about just the symptoms. We have to root cause the problem as well. So I hope that I'm explaining what I'm trying to say here. It makes sense. And be the ones who are not only talking about the side effects and somehow we do some patchwork, rather the one who target the root cause and look for solutions which are permanent and do not create these kind of problems on a systemic manner. It has become systemic. This is why we see that sometimes people think of it, oh, we are living in the West, or we're living in what now the whole world is so close, there's no more East-West anymore. But we say that that we are living here, we will take just the good of it, and as if we will not be impacted by the other things. Well, once we are here, and once we start thinking of ourselves that kind of a melting in this society, then we will face the same problems the ones who are believers and non-believers that they're facing. So hence, we should be the ones who will be leading the efforts of bring Islam back in a manner that will bring a systemic change for the world. I hope that makes sense, yeah? Inshallah. Barakallah feek. Yeah, it takes time is one thing.
On the same note, if you can also point out, please, that majority of the time when you see the discussion of the mahar, the bride and groom are out of the picture. Families are deciding basically, and how can we address this? Because youth are sitting here, and most likely some more people will be watching. So how can
True.
we address this?
Barakallah feek.
issue?
Barakallah
They
feek.
say we did not raise our kids that way that they can decide these things.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very unfortunate.
Now, Barakallah feek, this is an important thing to understand. But look, the parents are the ones who are watching for their children. And I want to make sure that we understand that. If somebody asks for $200,000 as the mahar, or $1 million, whatever, I think is asking from the ones who they know that they can pay. That means the person is a billionaire, fine, take $1 million from him. But if Allah, I just want to make sure we understand that. If Allah did not put the limit, we should not be putting the limit. Look, Umar bin Khattab was very clear about that, right? Now, this is up to us. And I said that also, right? That if somebody's giving some ridiculous amount, asking for a ridiculous amount, you have other choices. You don't have to go stick with that one choice. But I think we have to be a little bit careful in that. We cannot be outrightly saying that we need ijtihad or something now to lower down the mahar or something. No, Allah did not put the limit. We should. I understand. The ijtihad is happening? Well, if somebody is making an ijtihad on a clear hukum from Allah Azza wa Jal, I would say he is at wrong, and I'm saying it very clearly. I'm not trying to hide and try to sugarcoat something. And for me, it's not necessarily enough for me just because somebody is a celebrity scholar, and if he comes up and says something which contradicts Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's clear hukum, then it doesn't matter how big of credentials people have. Look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they took their ahbar and ruhban as their arbab, as their lords, as their gods. And Adi bin Hatim radiallahu anhu, who was not Muslim, came to Rasulullah. He said, "What, we did not make them as our gods. Why are you saying this?" He was a Christian at that time. You know that story, yeah?
I understand the term. This is midnight ijtihad, meaning this is do not do it. Do not go there. Do not get married with this girl. That's what they do.
Oh, that's a recommendation. It's not called ijtihad. It's a recommendation, and if a person cannot do it.
Inshallah, more discussions as well. 5 minutes, and then we will end it off here.
I was enjoying now.
Enjoying?
Just started enjoying.
We'll do a part two because there are many questions. And if we continue with the questions, we're going to be staying here until 11 o'clock.
The director has made a
By the way,
statement.
by the way, this is also a request from the sister side to
Oh,
do a
mashallah.
part two.
Mashallah. Okay. Question. What should a man do if he's too shy to reach out to the potential wife and family and feels embarrassing in some way?
There's more on the back.
No, that's the one question before. You put on both sides.
2 questions.
Yeah,
Should we answer 2 for 1?
No, we already answered the first one.
Okay.
Okay, look, this goes back to what I had mentioned earlier about the guy has to take certain stances. I understand he's shy, and that's okay that he's shy, but if he's serious about this, he has to get over that barrier and figure out, how can I contact the father? How can I contact the family, right? This is from the guy's perspective, right? He was asked that question, right? So really, I think it's as simple as that. And if he's not comfortable himself going and doing that, then seek out the help from others, an elder in the community or somebody that can go and ask on your behalf. But that requires you being connected to the community.
Okay. Okay. Combining these 2 questions, one it says, what does it mean to love for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Another one here, it says, when we talk about muwadda and rahmah, loving compassion, do you mean the Western type of love, or does Islam have a definition of love that leads to care about the one who you love, so he/she attains the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Well, first question is specific for Hadis, second one wanted both of you. I'm combining it together.
That's from your wife.
No, this is from the guy's side. Someone wants specifically your answer.
Brother.
I don't know why they want my answer specifically on this one. Regarding the mawadda wa
Wad
rahmah.
rahman, in definition of Wad rahman, love. So is it the Western type of love? Are you talking about, or are you talking about love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That's why I linked it with the other question of why does it mean to love? What does it mean to love for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Look, first of all, take this in context with the other ayat that mentioned the tranquility that's achieved through a proper marriage done for the right intentions, right? Western love is not about building up, unless it's strictly financially speaking, right? And it's more so like a lust that's discussed, right? And that's the concept of going back to that material reality and the discussion on trophy wives and husbands and so on and so forth, and status and doing things for the sake of other people and not really caring about your end destination, your where you're going to be heading in your accountability and so on and so forth, right? That lust is different. That lust is temporary. Lust is something that will vanish and fade, right? And it's a pursuit. And going back to even the hadith that if the son of Adam were to be given a mountain of gold, he would want another. That's that temporal type of thing. That's not connected to your higher purpose as an ibadah of Allah.
Any comments on this?
Yeah, so just remember this term, whenever we hear this term about love of Allah, love of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's an obligation, by the way. Okay? So loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is an obligation. But understand what it means. What it means by that is obeying Allah Azza wa Jal, what Allah has commanded us to do. That's what the love is. Yeah? قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ. Yeah? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, say to them, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you love me, follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the loving is connected to the obedience. Okay? So it's the obedience of Allah Azza wa Jal. So if something we are doing for sake of Allah, you're loving for sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you cannot be by disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is in the obedience of Allah that you are loving the person also. So your action is in accordance of obeying Allah Azza wa Jal. Yeah. So that will become automatically that whatever you are doing. So you are, even if you see something wrong a person is engaged in, for the love of Allah, that you love this person by even correcting him or her. Yeah. That's part of the love, because you are trying to prevent a person to be in the direction that can be harmful for him in this dunya and akhirah. That's the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. So the loving the person is connected with love of Allah this way, that you're obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Messenger.
Jazakallahu khairan. There is one question.
Sorry.
I don't understand the terms.
Okay, the question is because he looked at me and he he racially profiled me.
Yes.
And said, I can understand this question and others cannot. Well, it's okay, I'll take it. The question is, if the bride's wali wants to give what is called jahez in Urdu, on the excuse of just in case basis or to keep their daughter comfortable, should the groom let her accept it, or is it a reason to end talks because it's anti-Islam? It's a big problem in Indo-Pak culture, the bride side giving furniture in jahez. Okay. No, I think I want to make sure that it's not misunderstood. So, jahez is a dowry. You want to call it dowry, but it's not really dowry in the sense of what the mahar is referred as, which is a haqq, which is a must, should be given to the wife. Yeah, that's the mahar. Now, jahez is referred normally in Indo-Pak culture is the father, out of his own goodwill, wants to give something to his daughter, which is allowed. It's a gift. As a gift, it is allowed. The problem is not that. I think what is hidden in there is, which is referred as anti-Islam, which is, it has become a must for the girl side. The father has to pay, could be 50,000, 100,000. Sometimes they ask for a house or a car and things like that to be paid to the groom for marrying the daughter. So this is where the part which is non-Islamic came in, and this is coming from the Hindu culture as well. Yeah, But as far as the gifts go, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he gave gifts to Fatima radiallahu anha when she was getting married. So there's nothing wrong in that case of if somebody wants to give the gifts to the daughter, of course nobody can stop and must not be considered as anti-Islam. But the other way, when it's considered as you must pay to get married to the guy, that's a problematic.
If you missed my last part, like.
Also the furniture and stuff, right?
Someone is from Pakistan, India, Bangladesh,
Yeah.
Yemen, whatnot, right? Then parents comes in when all is done, in the last moment, closing deal. Oh, that's from this place, we're not from that place. Sorry. That's happening a lot, and our kids getting older and older.
Oh, you-
35, 36 now.
Oh, it's not this part, this
No,
question.
no, no, I'm sorry.
Separate part, okay.
I asked you the question.
Yeah.
Is it Islamic?
Of course not. It's not Islamic. To deny a person just because he is from a different part of the world. Look, as a Muslim, unfortunately, we have fall trap to the colonialist masters who divided the ummah and drew the lines between us into nation state in a manner that parts of the world that used to be considered as one. Now, because they drew the line, so now we are different people. Until 1947, Indian subcontinent was one. 47 became two. 71 became three. And like down the road, where the Balochistan becomes something else, or Sindh becomes something else, or Pakhtunkhwa goes somewhere else, or India, the Hyderabad separate. So look, the problem with us is we are looking at it the wrong way. Yeah, it is nationalism is one of the biggest false gods that exists in the hearts and the minds of the people. That God has to be destroyed from the minds of the Muslims. Okay? Once we destroy these kind of borders in our minds. As a matter of fact, as Muslim, we are connected. But we are one ummah. But we have been divided by that, and we are kept this way, those divisions. Even moon sighting, that's gonna come up now. And just to keep the example of Pakistan, because we're discussing bases. Until 1947 could be one moon, after 47 become two moons, and then 71 became three moons. So three different countries are watching their, sighting their own moon. And even though they could be miles away from each other, they will say, no, this moon is not for you, for me, because now I am under this government. So this is ridiculous, the way we are. So when it comes to marriage, yes, it is incorrect to say no based on what the person is from. Now look at the examples, and I know you are getting restless. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made his freed slave Zayd bin al-Haritha radiallahu anhu to his cousin Zainab bint Jahash. She is a cousin of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imagine that. To break all these kinds of taboos that existed. And not only that, after that, he was commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to marry Zainab now. After the divorce from Zayd, his freed slave divorced his cousin, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and now he has to marry. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was feeling that, okay man, this how the people are going to react to this. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhan nabi, اتق الله ولا تطع الكافرين والمنافقين. Oh Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, have the taqwa. You know the Arab guys, they know very well. Somebody say اتق الله, they shut up. After that, even though they are red, fighting with you and all that, they will calm down. The reason is because it carries something very heavy. Because you're telling somebody to have the fear of Allah. What are you saying? Allah is saying to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, have the fear of Allah. Ittaqillah, and do not follow the kuffar and the hypocrites. Inna Allah kana aliman hakima. And Allah is the one who is all knowledgeable. Allah is the one who is all wise. And then Allah says, وَاتَّبِعْ مَا يُوحَى إِلَيْكَ, and follow what Allah has revealed to you. Yeah? Inna Allah kana bima ta'amaluna khabira. And Allah is aware of what you are doing. What you all do. Look, today, how many times, what we are talking about here, people are worried about what the people will say. Yeah? Allah has warned Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam about this. So we have to work on this, to destroy this taboo, destroy this God, false God that we have. And we have to tell our khatibs in our masajid, what are you guys doing? Destroy these gods. Make sure people are not calling each other for this kind of a garbage ideas. Okay?
Jazakallahu khairan. Inshallah. Owen, I really appreciate both of you coming and volunteering to sit down. I have time here, 2 hours and 20 minutes to talk about this, and we still didn't cover all the questions. So one, it's very clear and important that this is an important topic that both men and women, the community want to understand and better understand. First and foremost, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are snacks for the brothers here in the prayer room, and then for the sisters in the conference room, there are also snacks. Again, Jazakallah khair. ولقولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه هو الغفور الرحيم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.